Tonight on Primetime, Hamas leaders are in Istanbul for talks on the second phase of a proposed Gaza peace plan. Could the outcome of these discussions spark hope for an end to the war in Gaza? Thanks for joining us. You're watching Primetime. I'm Katie Wilson. Tonight, we begin in the Middle East, where the United Nations says dozens of people were reportedly killed across the territory over the weekend as attacks and critical supply shortages place its healthcare system under growing pressure.
OSHA stresses that under international humanitarian law, civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected and should not be targeted. Healthcare facilities must never be attacked or militarized. Further on health, our humanitarian partners warn that funding constraints continue to drive shortages of essential medical supplies, including insulin for patients with type 1 diabetes and medicines for cardiovascular diseases.
Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza say they have seen little change despite renewed efforts to advance a peace deal. Many displaced residents say continued strikes and evacuations have left them with little hope of an end to the war.
For many families in Gaza, promises of a peace agreement have yet to bring any change on the ground. A displaced woman living in a tent in Gaza City says her family fled their home after Israeli forces expanded their presence in the area. Surrounded by rubble, she says people need action, not more statements.
We don't want talk, we want action. We are not seeing anything. Destruction has increased, displacement has increased. The Israeli military has started displacing people, forcing entire neighborhoods to leave their homes and tents and then striking them again.
She says repeated displacement has left families with no sense of security.
The reality we see in front of us is just talk. Nothing is being implemented. We are waiting for death at any moment. We are waiting for displacement at any moment. Our entire lives are gone, our future is gone, and our children's future is gone.
Her comments come as efforts continue to advance a US-backed Gaza peace plan, which calls for Hamas to disarm and for Israeli forces to withdraw in phases. But the agreement faces major obstacles, with Israel insisting Hamas must disarm before further steps are taken, while Hamas is demanding a halt to Israeli operations and a troop withdrawal. Across Gaza, many displaced Palestinians remain in tents or damaged buildings, saying continued violence has deepened uncertainty over whether the deal can bring an end to the war.
Well, against this worsening humanitarian backdrop, diplomatic efforts are continuing, with Turkey and Hamas discussing the next phase of a proposed Gaza peace plan. Turkey's intelligence chief met Hamas leaders in Istanbul today to map out the second phase of a proposed Gaza peace plan, with state media reporting a positive response from Hamas. The talks coincided with a joint statement from regional mediators Turkey, Egypt and Qatar, who strongly condemned Israel's ongoing military operations and accused it of targeting civilian infrastructure. Well, joining us now from Turkey is political analyst and former diplomat Melih Demirtaş. Dr. Demirtaş, thank you for being with us as always. Now, what more do we know about these talks which took place in Istanbul?
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. And also thank you again to have this important subject in your also news bulletin, again, Primetime, because we must talk more about this issue. Surprisingly, I think positively, we have some Western coverage. From giant press agencies, we always see some, Israeli, inclined news from these first days of the Gaza war. I think with this start of the ceasefire, and not maybe a ceasefire for Israel, I think the public opinion is now starting to change also maybe in favor of this humanitarian cause. Because from day one, we always argue, as Turkey, as some constructive factors in the region, we always said that Israel has an intention, and it will be not maybe think about in the same pot with diplomacy, in the same pot with humanitarian solutions. And now we are seeing directly that Israel really did what it did, just 2 and 3 years ago in the region, just in this weekend. Also your coverage showed these shocking scenes and pictures, unfortunately, from Gaza, from the field. Hamas actually did something. It actually took a step, positive step, constructive step. We know that Hamas is an organization, can also have some military tactics, some destructive options on the field. We know that. But still, they took a step for diplomacy, for humanity solution. But we do not know still what Israel's really aims, especially after Mr. Netanyahu's visit. Please also think about this last visit of Israeli Prime Minister to Washington. After that date, we just see that some things really start to be much more destructive on Gaza. Also in West Bank, still some things continue. I mean, not in a, again, humanitarian or diplomatic sense. Also, we must not forget that the Iranian issue also continues for the United States. So in coordination with all these attacks, we think that as Turkey, we must really think a bit rapidly, think for humanity cause, for example, and think about for United Nations solutions. Unfortunately, we cannot see Israel in this step, I mean, as a positive actor for all this solution, for all this diplomatic attempt. They cannot do anything very positively. We are so sorry to see this.
So with all of that in mind, how optimistic are you that these talks have brought us any closer to peace in Gaza?
We must be hopeful, Ms. Wilson, because otherwise the conflicts have, can really have another important impacts in the wider region. Think about this Russia-Ukrainian war, think about the Iranian war. Some upcoming conflicts I do not want to spell, of course. Many regions have some potential historical causes, historical grievances to talk more in this field. And when all people, I mean, many people are dying, and when we are all watching without any, support to them in your screens, in your mobiles, TVs, in your screens, what can we do? And this can really provoke something much more in a marginal sense. Some marginal groupings can really arise in such an atmosphere. Some actors really wish such an ending. Like some cabinet members of some ministers in Israel, we really do know them well, that they are always talking about this radicalization, this marginalization. They can really mean some new votes, some new electoral, campaigns or victories for them. But it will not mean something very good for this diplomatic solution. And still, we play as a constructive actor as Turkey. I think, of course, Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan, also Azerbaijan, they really give very strong messages, especially in this time against Israel.
So let's focus more on that diplomatic atmosphere and Turkey specifically. What could Ankara's role be in this? Obviously, President Erdogan for a long time has publicly criticised Israel's actions here. So would Ankara be interested in being a mediator, for example?
Mediation has a history of diplomatic talkings, Ms. Wilson, and sometimes mediation always necessitates some neutrality. We know that. But especially starting again this warlike tactics against this non-hidden or very direct challenges in this region. Also starting against this Russia-Ukrainian war, but especially in this Palestinian genocide issue and also Iranian war, we see that sometimes mediation cannot be really so easy. Because sometimes you must be not neutral. You must really speak for the humanity lives, as I think Mr. Guterres, this now I think Secretary General, who will end, unfortunately, his posture, his mission very soon in the United Nations Secretary Generalship. But still, also he gave real direct messages. Sometimes some Israeli cabinet members think that he is not quote-unquote neutral, but also we see them, such personalities really talk in the sake or in the name of humanity. Or President, Mr. Erdogan also gave really strong messages. Sometimes it's also called non-diplomatic, but on the reality, for the reality of the field, someone must really talk very openly. And this someone, will be our Turkish president. Sometimes other presidents also, I think, start to give, as I said in my first response, also from the Western public opinion, we really see, fortunately, very direct messages against Israel. And yes, Turkey can play this role, but also we need some help. Yes, we need some help of other brother countries, like, of course, I think Qatar, like, of course, Azerbaijan, Pakistan. They did a really good and constructive job in Iran. I think altogether we can maybe have a pact against such destructive factors, I think, first of all, against Israel.
And you're sort of touching upon what I wanted to get to next. So how will countries like Israel, the United States, respond to Turkey taking a more active role in these negotiations? And as you mentioned earlier, how might Qatar and Egypt also get involved here?
Actually, Mr. Trump's already gave some very also direct messages, starting from, I think, last month. He really spoke very differently from the early stages or early months of this conflict between, of course, Hamas and Israel. And also Mr. Vance, think about this vice president's role in his direct also sayings in public televisions, also international media conferences. And after that date, we also see that in Israel, something's also really shaken. I mean, for diplomatic, of course, personalities, of course, even for Mr. Netanyahu and his cabinet members, far-rightist members especially. But also they gave always some very negative statements, I mean, from Israel's side to Turkey. You're right. Because of this, I also said that we need some help of this pact, because United States has not only an important ally of Turkey in this region, also Egypt, also Pakistan, also Azerbaijan, Qatar. And such actors are really some equalizing actors. They are some important, I mean, constructive actors for many years. One actor, I mean, Israel always pushes the borders and always want to play in the maximum level. And this maximum level, unfortunately, in these last 3 years, it's not a positive sense. And I think Mr. Trump, as I said, starting from this last month, really want to play this game maybe in a positive diplomatic sector, especially with this Iranian maybe war. And I think he will support us. He will support also the other members of this alliance, I mean, Qatar, Egypt, all the regional actors. And I think we will really win in the name of humanity, at least we hope so.
And finally, Dr. Dermitage, over the coming weeks, coming months, obviously we've got Netanyahu facing the electorate. What are you going to be looking out for? What are going to be the key moments here, do you think?
We really believe that still some conscience, still some humanity feelings are really existent in Israeli public opinion. We really trust, I mean, some of them, after really some of the Israeli population, we know that still a working democracy, still a public opinion, still some intelligence sector, especially in social media in Israel, still something exists there. It is not only some far-rightist, really marginal voices in Israel, we know that. It is not about Mr. Netanyahu, and we know that Israel can really play in a much more positive or humanitarian field. Sometimes in the history, in the near history, we also helped and support this Israeli politics for being more democratic, much more humanitarian. But at the end of the day, as we have seen today, unfortunately, some marginal sectors really win this game as far as we see now. But in this election, as you said, in upcoming elections, we really trust this people, democratic people, humanitarian people of Israel, and actually they will give their voice, actually, for the sake of all the prosperity and also peaceful atmosphere in this region.
Certainly one to watch, isn't it? Thank you, as always, Dr. Dermitage, for joining us on the programme and for providing your analysis.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Coming up, we'll take a look at how the crisis in the Gulf and the Russia-Ukraine war are affecting energy supplies in Central Asia. Don't go away. Welcome back, you're watching Prime Time. Disruption in the Gulf, along with the war between Russia and Ukraine, is affecting energy supplies across Central Asia. As a result, Tajikistan's petrol production has fallen, while neighbouring Uzbekistan is expanding domestic output to offset a drop in Russian exports. Sevil Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
Tajikistan's energy sector has reported contrasting results this year. Gasoline production fell nearly 15-fold in the first half of this year, dropping to just 304 tons from 4,500. At the same time, crude oil production rose 9% to more than 10,000 tons. The sharp decline reflects Tajikistan's limited refining capacity and its continued reliance on imported fuel, much of it from Russia. Russia's fuel sector has come under growing pressure following a series of long-range Ukrainian drone strikes on oil refineries, fuel depots and transport infrastructure. According to the Moscow Times, the attacks have forced Russian oil refining to its lowest level in 24 years, while Moscow has reported fuel shortages in several regions. In response, Russia extended its sweeping fuel export ban through the 31st of January 2027, covering gasoline, diesel, marine fuel, and gas oil to stabilize domestic prices and supplies following refinery disruptions. Against that backdrop, Uzbekistan is moving to strengthen its own energy security by expanding domestic production. According to a report presented to President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, demand for aviation fuel is expected to reach 375,000 tons on the second half of the year, up 27% from a year earlier, driven by growing international air traffic through Central Asia. State-owned Uzbekneftgaz says it produced 11.5 billion cubic meters of natural gas during the first 6 months of this year, while output of oil, diesel, jet fuel, and liquefied gas exceeded targets. By the end of 2026, the company plans to produce 1.1 million tons of gasoline, 983,000 tons of diesel, and 310,000 tons of jet fuel, as Uzbekistan continues modernizing its oil and gas industry and reducing its dependence on imported fuel. Sivil Rajab reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan News.
Well, to discuss this further, we're joined by energy security specialist John Roberts. Thank you for being with us this evening. Now, what more do we know about this situation on the ground in Central Asia, and how is it impacting everyday life?
Well, there are several ways in which it's affecting everyday life. Notably, the shortage of gasoline and diesel. You need gasoline for your cars, you need diesel for your trucks, and of course you also need it very commonly still for railways. But I think the main point is here that the pain is not even. You have some countries, the classic example would be Tajikistan, that is almost totally dependent traditionally on receiving its diesel and its gasoline from Russia. Well, officially they say they've got 60 days of oil products around and that they're no problem. But they've also decided that they're going to try to see if they can negotiate for the import of fuel products from China. Now, you only would do that, given that there's no pipeline system that would serve it, if you thought you were really going to be desperate. But look upstream, what is the problem? The problem is the Ukrainian attacks on Russian refineries. They have hit Russia hard. According to the Financial Times, a 45% drop in output. According to actual figures for particular products, diesel is down to not much more than a quarter of what it was being produced 5 years ago. So this is not good. This means that Russia, as a traditional supplier to Central Asia, cannot do that.
And do you think as a result of this, we could see Central Asian countries rethinking that traditional reliance on Russia?
They have to, because if Russia cannot simply provide the diesel and gasoline that the Central Asian states require from it, then they've got to turn to alternative suppliers. Now, don't exclude the fact that Kazakhstan does itself have a substantial refining industry. Indeed, there was a time at which some Kazakh products went back to Russia in return for crude oil coming in to be processed at the Pavlodar refinery. So there is an ability for Kazakhstan to help make up, but it's not a great ability. It's not even a balancing factor. For a balancing factor, you need to beef up the volume and the production capability of refineries in Central Asia. And that is not something that you can do overnight.
And how do you think this is all going down in Kyiv? Do you think they'll be pleased with this? Is this an indication their strategy is working?
Oh, I think it would mean, from a Ukrainian point of view, they would tend to think it's working. But it comes at a price. The question is, does Ukraine fear alienating Kazakhstan? The reason I pose it like this is that Ukrainian attacks on the Novorossiysk oil terminal impact on Kazakh oil exports. And Kazakhstan has very limited options for increasing its exports in any other direction. At the same time, Kazakhstan is obviously going to come under pressure from Russia to try to ease its relations with Russia and end its own ban on fuel exports. So Kazakhstan is in a delicate position, but if Ukraine continues the attacks on Novorossiysk so that it really severely hampers Kazakh oil exports, then perhaps Kazakhstan will be forced to reconsider its options and become a better partner for Russia than the West would like it to be.
It's interesting. Sounds like it's quite a balancing act then, especially for Kazakhstan. So do we have a sense of Kazakh policy or how Kazakh leaders are planning to deal with that?
Kazakhstan's policy has been a sort of studied neutrality. It's, above all, it needs to preserve its independence from Russia. So it doesn't want to do anything that upsets the rather delicate position in which northern regions of Kazakhstan have an ethnic Russian majority. At the same time, it's provided humanitarian aid to Ukraine and clearly regards the Russian war against Ukraine and the all-out invasion of February 22 as being an offensive that damages the region as a whole and destroys its ability to have good relations with both Russia and Ukraine, which is what it would really like.
And could the prolonged disruption to Russia's energy sector, if that is what happens, could it create new opportunities for regional producers like Kazakhstan, as you mentioned, or perhaps Uzbekistan?
I think the answer to that is yes, but it's a rather worrying answer because for them to take full opportunity and to expand their refining operations, that requires two things. One, import of new technology and goods, much of which may have to come from China. And the other thing is it assumes that to justify that kind of investment, the Ukrainian war will continue for another year or more. And that is the really worrying thing, because if that happens, then along with the crisis in the Gulf, the isolation of the Central Asian states, and indeed of the Caucasus states, continues and indeed deepens.
And just finally, John, if these strikes do continue on Russian oil refineries, what are the knock-on effects that we could be seeing in the coming weeks, the coming months?
Essentially, Russian gasoline and diesel exports have dried up completely now. The knock-on effects are those felt by consumers because the consumers now have to turn to alternative suppliers. In Kazakhstan, they can probably make it up by increasing their own refinery runs and just simply managing their oil and their diesel and gasoline better. The same might prove true of Uzbekistan, but there the issue concerns really how much they can turn gas into liquids. The problems, though, for Kyrgyzstan and for Tajikistan are much graver. And really, I can see no alternative, at least in the immediate future, than turning to China. And for them, the question is, does that come at a price?
Really interesting issue, isn't it? Thank you very much for joining us and for providing your insight on that.
Okay, a pleasure. Thank you.
After the break, we'll check in with our correspondents from around the globe, so do stay with us. Welcome back, you're watching Prime Time. Now, despite publicly denying direct talks with Washington, Tehran is keeping diplomatic channels open through its regional partners. Iran's foreign minister has spoken separately with his Pakistani and Omani counterpart as mediators try to revive negotiations and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Tarash Shiralu reports from Tehran.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has held separate phone calls with his Pakistani and Omani counterparts aimed at de-escalating tensions in the region and diplomatic efforts towards resuming mediated talks with the US and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. According to official sources quoting Foreign Ministry news releases, top diplomats of Iran, Pakistan, and Oman reviewed regional developments and the current diplomatic activities. State IRNA news agency reported that Araghchi and Pakistan's Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar emphasized the continuation of closer cooperation and consultations with the aim of establishing permanent peace and stability in the region. It also said that Araghchi and Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi discussed and exchanged views on the latest regional developments. Pakistan is the key mediator between Tehran and Washington and facilitated the signing of a ceasefire memorandum of understanding by the Iranian and US presidents in June, which expires in 2 weeks. Oman, which used to be the main channel of contacts between both countries, is currently in talks with Tehran to work out an arrangement for the transit of vessels from the Strait of Hormuz. The dispute between Tehran and Washington in implementing Clause 5 of the Islamabad Memorandum to reopen the strategic waterway has stalled the talks on reaching a permanent peace deal between Iran and the US. It has also resulted in a standoff with repeated tit-for-tat strikes at Iran and at US bases and interests in the region. While Iran has denied US President Donald Trump's remarks about ongoing talks with Tehran, Pakistan Foreign Ministry has reportedly invited Foreign Minister Araghchi to visit Islamabad at the earliest possible opportunity. Turash Shiralu from Tehran for A News.
Going back to the Russia-Ukraine war now, the impact is spreading beyond the battlefield, placing commercial shipping in the Black Sea at growing risk. A Turkish-owned cargo vessel has been struck by drones near a Russian port, leaving 3 crew members seriously injured. Adam Morrow reports from Istanbul.
Turkish authorities say another Turkish-owned cargo vessel was struck by drones near Russia's Black Sea port of Novorossiysk in the latest incident involving commercial shipping in the region. According to Turkey's Directorate of Maritime Affairs, the Nadizda was attacked on Monday while sailing from Novorossiysk to the Turkish port of Samsun. The ship was carrying 22 crew members, including 13 Turkish nationals. Russian naval units reportedly evacuated the crew to Novorossiysk, but Turkish officials say 3 crew members may have suffered serious injuries. The ship also sustained significant damage to its bow and accommodation block, while a fire aboard the stricken vessel reportedly continues to burn. Authorities also said rescue operations had been suspended due to the continuing threat of drone attacks in the area. The incident is the latest in a growing number of attacks involving Turkish or Turkish-linked merchant vessels operating in the Black Sea since the Russia-Ukraine war began in early 2022. Repeated incidents have heightened concerns that the conflict is spilling over into the Black Sea and endangering civilian shipping, despite efforts to keep commercial trade routes open. In a separate development, Turkish authorities said an aerial drone of unknown origin had been found in the Black Sea province of Kastamonu on Monday, after apparently losing contact with its operator. Emergency teams quickly secured the area before removing the drone for forensic examination. The discovery follows a similar incident in June when a fixed-wing drone crashed in the same province. Repeated drone-related incidents along Turkey's Black Sea coast have prompted renewed scrutiny of regional security as the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine increasingly spills beyond the immediate battlefield. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Earnings at the oil giant BP are now at their highest since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 4 years ago. Zainab Farisada reports from Manchester.
The British oil and gas company BP has reported its biggest quarterly profit since the early months of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as the Middle East crisis pushed up oil and gas prices. The UK-based multinational says profits more than doubled in the 3 months to the end of June, reaching nearly $6 billion. The company said disruption to energy exports from the Gulf region contributed to higher prices and stronger earnings, but BP's new chief, Meg O'Neill, says the company still has work to do to reach its full potential. She is expected to oversee a major review of BP's strategy, including a possible exit from the North Sea after around 6 decades of production in the UK. Speaking to CNBC, O'Neill said she had spoken with Prime Minister Andy Burnham, who showed a willingness to work closely with businesses. She said the UK continues to rely heavily on oil and gas, arguing that domestic resources should be prioritized instead of imports. The comments come after Burnham faced criticism from environmental groups and warnings of a possible political backlash over his apparent support for more oil and gas drilling. BP's results follow strong earnings from other major energy companies. Shell reported one of its highest quarterly profits on record. Saudi Aramco also saw profits rise sharply, helped by stronger sales of crude oil and refined products. The surge in earnings has renewed criticism from campaigners who say energy companies are benefiting while households continue to face high bills. Environmental groups have also warned that continued reliance on fossil fuels is contributing to more severe heat waves, wildfires and droughts around the world. Zainab Farisada, A News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
EU Interior Ministers expressed solidarity with Spain in an urgent call on Tuesday to address the border incident in Ceuta last week. More than 70 people died as more than 60,000 migrants surged into Ceuta by swimming around a seawall or breaking through a frontier fence between Morocco and Spain's enclave on the North African coast. Ross Cullen reports.
Well, ministers from around the European Union joined that call on Tuesday, including Laurent Nunez, the French Interior Minister, saying that we stand in solidarity with Spain and we support and hail Spain's management of the crisis. This is a far cry from the positions taken at the end of last week, 31st of July, 1st of August, with Italy so angry about the surge of 60,000 migrants into the Spanish semi-enclave of Ceuta that it temporarily suspended the passport-free Schengen travel zone agreement that it has with Spain. This is the EU-wide agreement, certainly continental EU. If you fly from France to Germany or take a train from Austria to Italy, for example, no passport checks when you're moving in the Schengen zone. Italy suspending that temporarily. Denmark and Finland agreeing with Rome. We heard even from France that said on one hand it wanted to offer assistance to Spain. On the other hand, it was going to beef up its security along the southern border. So this urgent meeting on Tuesday of Interior Ministers, a chance to clear the air, try to dial down some of that rhetoric. And I'll just bring you some of the statement they released after the conclusion of that meeting, saying that there was a common understanding of the need to continue relentlessly fighting migrant smuggling networks, reinforcing returns, strengthening EU borders and building deep partnerships with third countries. Ross Cullen, A News, Paris.
After the break, we'll take a look at the other top stories making the headlines today. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, you're watching Primetime. 2 firefighters have been killed in Greece as major wildfires fuelled by high temperatures and strong winds continue to rage. Weather experts are warning of continued risk from extreme weather across Europe.
A large fire that started in the Rosmolen Nature Reserve in Limburg province in the Netherlands quickly spread through the treetops, forcing people at a nearby campsite to flee. At least 21 hectares were burnt. That's around 210,000 square metres. Train services were also suspended. 35 firefighting vehicles and defence helicopters were deployed, with crews arriving from several regions to help contain the blaze.
The challenge with extinguishing the fire is that it is, as far as I'm aware, very high up in the trees. We are, of course, also dealing with wind that is fanning the flames, the fire is moving through the trees, and you have to be able to reach it.
In Greece, more than 400 firefighters and 21 aircraft were tackling a wildfire northwest of Athens for a fourth day on Monday. Strong and erratic winds have driven flames through pine forests and farmland, damaging homes and forcing evacuations of people by land and sea. 2 crew members were killed on Sunday after their firefighting helicopter collided with another aircraft near Psatha. The 2 people aboard the second helicopter survived. Also on Monday, firefighters west of Madrid contained a vegetation fire near a wastewater treatment facility. 5 helicopters and 10 ground crews were deployed, with no injuries or damage to the plant reported. Authorities remain alert for flare-ups as another heatwave approaches. In southern France, a fire that flared up on Friday in the Var region had stabilised by Monday after burning around 1,850 hectares, although officials said it was not yet under control. About 1,500 firefighters remain deployed, supported by waterbombing aircraft. High temperatures and shifting winds could complicate operations, while most evacuation orders had been lifted.
North Korea has dismissed a US-led warning over alleged cyber activities as a politically motivated attempt to damage its reputation and increase pressure on sovereign states. That's according to state media, which cited a foreign ministry spokesperson. The statement appeared to be in response to an alert issued on Friday by the United States, South Korea, Japan and 8 other countries, warning that North Korean IT workers use false identities and artificial intelligence tools to secure remote jobs. Pyongyang in turn accused Washington of militarizing cyberspace. Regional security and the future role of the OSCE were high on the agenda as the organisation's chair visited Baku for talks with Azerbaijan's foreign minister. The discussions also focused on bilateral cooperation and humanitarian challenges across the South Caucasus.
Swiss Foreign Minister and OSCE Chairperson in Office, Ignacio Cassis, visited Baku for talks with Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov. The discussions focused on bilateral relations, Azerbaijan's cooperation with the OSCE, regional security and the Azerbaijan-Armenia normalization process. During a joint press conference, Bayramov also answered a question from InNews.
We expect a number of additional developments in the Azerbaijan-Armenia normalization process, and the TRIPP project included in the Washington Peace Summit document is one of them. The project is highly significant for the region. Azerbaijan receives regular updates from the United States regarding this process. We expect physical work to begin on the 42-kilometer section in 2026. All of these developments promise substantial benefits for the region.
The minister also reiterated that a final peace agreement with Armenia will require the removal of territorial claims against Azerbaijan from Armenia's constitution.
This war remains the most serious challenge to European security and to the principles on which the OSCE is founded, and this was particularly my part as a chairman in office of OSCE. We are working to preserve dialogue, and I mean real dialogue. It means the divergent parties, Russia, Belarus, and the other one, should find a way to talk together. This is the purpose of the OSCE. And to talk together and to explain each other how should we implement and continue to implement the Helsinki principles.
The ministers also discussed the future role of the OSCE, humanitarian cooperation and mine action. Azerbaijan says 433 people have been killed or injured by landmines and unexploded ordnance since 2020.
The OSCE can provide support to Azerbaijan in addressing the mine threats. As an organisation with experience in this field, it can contribute meaningfully. Given the demining capabilities of the OSCE and its participating states, Azerbaijan expects the organisation to become more active in this area.
Both sides said the visit also reflected their shared commitment to strengthening Azerbaijan-Swiss relations, supporting the OSCE's role in regional dialogue and advancing stability and cooperation across the South Caucasus.
And finally this evening, as hundreds of migrants remain stranded on the beaches of Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta after last week's mass border crossing. Among them is a Sudanese man who says reaching Spanish territory fulfilled a dream years in the making, despite the uncertainty that now lies ahead.
Days after reaching Ceuta, hundreds of migrants remain camped along the beach, relying on aid while they wait for decisions about their future. Among them is 29-year-old Ahmed Harun from Sudan's Darfur region, who says years of hardship and the hope of supporting his remaining family drove him to make the journey.
I have maybe families, they wait me, and I want to help them. I have many dreams. And the first dreams to me, just I want to help my last family. You know why I said last? Because I lost a lot of them. Maybe there is just 3 or 1 of them. And I want to last, and I want to help them. I don't want to lose that people still. And I will fight for them. I will fight. I will do anything just to help them.
Harun says he spent 4 years waiting for the chance to reach Spain and accepted the risks, including the possibility of being deported.
Finally, maybe I think I try with my dreams. If they deport me out, I don't care. All my dreams is just I introduce heirs. And right now, just we ask about humanity in 3 days, that first 3 days. After that, they look after us and they take care about us and they give us that things we need. And right now, just we excited to hear what they will say about us.
The mass arrival has reignited debate across Europe over migration and border management, with EU ministers pledging closer cooperation to tackle people smuggling networks and strengthen external borders. But for those waiting on Ceuta's beaches, the immediate concern is far more personal: whether they will be allowed to remain in Spain or be sent back.
That's all we've got time for tonight on Prime Time. From all of us here in the studio, thank you very much for watching and have a safe and restful evening. Good night.